right, video number 4 on too tight to wear. So take just a step back here, and well, I guess first maybe I'll just go through the code and then we'll talk about kind of the future of what we're going to keep developing. So I managed to get the shared preferences on there. I did notice that my program, which I'll start now because it'll take a little while to fire up this first time, but my program would work just fine, and then occasionally, well, certainly in the morning, it would have reset itself. Now, the funny thing is that the tile hadn't refreshed, so the tile hadn't done an on-tile request or a build here because it would still say the same amount of calories that I had when I put it on the charger at night. But as soon as I touched it and interacted with it, then of course it would go back to 0. So losing um, losing some variable there in memory somehow. I'm not exactly sure how, but it really doesn't matter. We all knew that we needed to store this data at some level. So we managed to do that, and the way we've gone through that, and I can't take credit for it. It was some other YouTube video I finally found. I had varying degrees of success, and there you can see it's actually shared preferences, even in the emulator. So that's from earlier today. But anyway, I'm importing shared preferences here, so nothing exciting there. We'll fly down here and you'll see one of the things I did is I made a global variable here for the calorie goal. I wanted to make this like a full-on old-school COBOL procedural program. The only thing I'm missing is a couple of go-to statements maybe, or basic if you're weren't on the mainframe like I was. But anyway, this is something that we're going to talk about in the future here before we end the video. So here on tile request, we can see we're going to load the data. So this is actually then loading this 450 out of 2,000 calories here. And when we get down at the bottom, we'll talk about that. It's not like this program has that many lines of code, so I think you can hold on for just a second. Swing down through here, nothing really changed. I did refactor a couple of things. So basically, instead of an add calories or subtract calories and add calories, I just made one button here, and then just pass in the ID. So that made it just a little less code just to deal with. Occasionally, I still like to print things out to look through and see how things flow. Again, showing my age, but it just makes it a little bit less. Nothing in the arc builder. Still have no idea how to get this to change color, or I noticed like on the step counter, once you get past your goal steps, it puts a little dot and runs a little dot around here. I suppose maybe you could abstract this class and build on it, but that's probably beyond my skill set, at least at the moment, and something I can live with without having that for the moment. Nothing changed down here. Reset calorie button, that's the same. Here's the add calorie button where it just takes in the string value for the ID and essentially leverages that in a couple of places to drive when the button gets created. And now, of course, here it is. So button ID here, and there was one other place where it sets the clickable button ID here. So no big changes there. Add, subtract calories, get percent, nothing really changed. Reset calories. So then really we just have these two lines of code here that are due the save and the load data. So we looked at load data. It's basically just creating a variable shared preferences from shared preferences, and then name the shared preferences, and then you can change the context mode. I made it private. Might have to change that when we build the app that it interacts with, but we'll get to there. And then it's just a float, and the cal key is what we're naming it, and then default is 0 if it doesn't get anything there, and then that's it. So that's all that it's doing, and then it returns the saved calories after it loads them. And then when you want to save the data, which you'll see a couple of places in the code, essentially you're doing the same thing other than you're creating an editor, and then you're just passing in the float value that you want to save. even though we display integers here, since we're doing the calculation, we really need to do it's easier to do the calculation on the float and then just cast it to an integer or whatever they call that in Kotlin. So save data up here, this gets called twice. It gets called in the layout builder here. I can find it, add button. And now I look like a buffoon because I'm not finding where I stuck this at. Add calories and minus calories. Oh, dummy. So it's down here at the bottom. I don't know what I was thinking. So basically here we've got to add calories and minus calories. So you just have save data and then you're just passing in the global cal count. So I mean really we've only got two variables here that we're throwing around, and now I'm well aware that it's not the ideal state as to how I implemented it, but again, as I've said earlier, I don't fucking care. It's my program and I'm just building it for fun and for my usage, and I'm more interested right now, at least in my journey into developing a Wear OS app in Kotlin to just get something up and running, and then I tend to learn best in these sorts of situations as I learn and build, and then I'll just go in and refactor as I'm like, wow, I can't believe you were doing it this way when this is really the right way you should have been doing it. So that's pretty much it for the code. I'll post this, it's already in the GitHub, and I'll post the code for the person that I found that does the shared preferences because it's really nice and concise. So I do want to just talk about it, a couple of next steps. So I think the next thing that I would like to implement is I'd like to be able to alter this calorie goal. It's not really going to change for me, but it's just the next sort of item that I can put into the program that somebody else, that one other person in the world that wants to use this program, that they might have a different goal that they want, so that you should be able to set that without having to recompile the program. And that's where the actual app comes in. And I don't quite understand all of it. Obviously, if you've watched any of these videos, you pretty clear that I don't understand all of it. But if I go and these are tiles that are here, and we go to this timer app, you can clearly see, here's the timer tile. And if I click on here, this then is not the tile. This is the timer app that's opening up and executing. And if I stop this, and it's kind of hard in the emulator, but if I go back, it takes me back to the home tile. I can then scroll through and get back to this timer tile. But when you actually click on this, you're no longer in the tile itself, at least the way I understand it. So the same we can do with my program, or too tight to wear, essentially, is I think what I want to do here in what I'm going to be working on over the weekend a little bit, and we'll get this thing fired back up real quick. So instead of when we click here, it just automatically resets the calories. I think it would be nice to have that a little dialog box pop up, and you get the checkbox just so that you can say, are you sure you want to do that? It's really not that big a deal. I did change this to 50 because 25 was just silly Sally trying to get there. But when you click here, then you should be able to have a checkbox that says, are you, check this to be sure you want to do it. And then that also opens up the ability to have another thing underneath it, I think, to do a settings or a config, a little system config. And then once you click that button below the yes, I want to reset, the reset will essentially just close the dialog box and take you back to the tile. But the other button, or the button below that, will then say, yeah, I want to go and interact more with the program. And so that's when it'll take you into the too tight to wear actual program and not the tile. And then you can initially set those goal calories, and that'll just go to shared preferences as well. I believe that's also then where you can say, you can do the dialogue to say, I want to allow this program to access the Fitbit API, and then in addition to having this how many calories you've eaten, you can have another arc here running that shows how many calories you've burned since you've got that on your watch to start with, and we talked about that just a little bit. So that I think will be the kind of two next things I'm going to work on eventually. You know, the other thing I really like about having uh, the Android app in Flutter that I wrote was seeing those binge calories, and especially on the weekends. You know, sometimes you're not going to get these 2,000 calories, so you're, you know, a good little soldier, you know, during the week, and then maybe Friday night you have an extra beer. Shout out to the Harpoon here. They make a nice 100-calorie. Probably can't see it very well, but they make a nice 100-calorie little IPA. Is it the best IPA in the world? Nope. Is it way better than some of the other craptastic ultra beers? You bet it is. So, um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's about it. Short video, but I just wanted to be able to get this thrown up there. I know for the massive viewership that I have, it's kind of nice to see that, you know, repetitive posting. So I'm doing that. Might take me a little bit of time to get the app up and running. I have no idea how to do that, so it'll be some education. And I found a couple of videos. I'm not concerned necessarily about being able to write a little app that saves calories, goal calories. That doesn't seem to be like any more challenging than creating a tile. Getting them together in Android, or how that interplay works. You know, the reason that all of this stuff on the bottom is within the main activity is because I still can't figure out how to appropriately instantiate a class in Kotlin and do stuff that are pretty basic, and that, you know, it shouldn't be that challenging to do, but I have refused thus far to go and, you know, take that learn Kotlin videos, but I think I'll probably have to take a couple of steps back and do at least some basics so I understand. You know, I need to find a good tutorial that's just how to build a pretty simple app like this almost in Android and Kotlin, so I can see, you know, how some of these things are actually working, as opposed to doing it pretty, you know, pretty old school, or pretty amateur like the way it is now. So I think that's it. I think I'm also putting together some data quality videos here. That's, like I said, what I do to pay the bills. I've got a lot to say about that, and you know, there's not a lot on the internet that's not proprietary. That is, you know, how do you build that data quality process, either from a tech or, you know, a data science or business side of things, that give you all the data quality fundamentals, and you know, let you run it in SQL or automate it, or you know, use ODBC connections into Power BI or Tableau or whatever your little, you know, visualization tool is of choice. That I think there's some value there, at least to me. And I've had to do a lot of hunting and pecking over the years, trying to determine some of the best ways to you know, profile data with you know, not have to type out all that code myself, and how to do you know, working through finding duplicates, you know, parent-child relationships, all of that. So we'll put that together as well. Probably won't benefit too much of the people that are watching these videos, but then don't watch them. That's the glorious thing about the internet. So that's it for me tonight, and have a great weekend.